Exposed, how an incredible night with a 18-year-old changed a heartless doctor forever. Dr. Michael Thompson strode into the Willow Creek Charity Gala with the air of a conquering king. His tailored suit, immaculate as his operating room, shouted success, yet he was a ghost among the living. His cold blue eyes scanned the room, taking in laughter and warmth without a flicker of acknowledgement. For years, he had measured his life in accolades and financial gains, shunning the very community that nurtured him. Tonight was just another function, another obligatory appearance. As he stood near the punch bowl, contemplating the politics of his profession, an 18-year-old girl caught his eye. Sarah was effortlessly radiant, moving through the crowd with a purpose that broke into his sterile world like sunlight through a grimy window. She was enthusiastic, sharing stories of her dreams of becoming a nurse, and the sparkle in her eye seemed almost out of place in this gathering of the affluent. "Can you imagine," she said, her voice bright, "helping others when you need it most?" Dr. Thompson rolled his eyes inwardly, reminding himself that such idealism was naive. But as she spoke, a strange feeling stirred within him, a distant memory of passion he had buried beneath years of practice and indifference. Their conversation flowed, Sarah's words spilling forth, tales of her single mother working multiple jobs, her dreams shadowed by the reality of financial struggles. He felt unwelcome pangs of sympathy of the past swirl, but he quickly swallowed them. Who did she think she was, assuming he cared? Yet there was something there, a fire flickering to life, igniting a slight crack in his hardened exterior. Before long, the night took an unexpected turn. The room buzzed with whispers as a commotion erupted near the entrance. Sarah's mother had collapsed. The atmosphere turned electric with urgency, and instinct kicked in. Dr. Thompson's years as a surgeon rushed forward, but this time, he wasn't merely moving for abstract duties, this was personal. He pushed through the crowd, his heart racing, confusion wrestling with determination. Inside the chaotic ER, the world outside faded, and the reality of life and death loomed large. The bright lights of the hospital ceiling illuminated his path as he fought against the odds to save Sarah's mother. The urgency kicked his adrenaline into overdrive, mixed with memories of his own family unraveling, hollow success tinged with regret. Distant voices erupted in the background as Sarah clutched her mother's hand, fear etched on her face. In that moment, something broke inside him. He was debating surgery, yet all he could see was the raw reality of the life around him, the community rallying, hoping that everything would be all right. They showed compassion that he had long deemed unnecessary. Before we continue, I need to let you know about something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to the system and many people are losing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, hit that bell and mark all notifications so you don't miss the next videos. And if you can drop a like, it really helps me with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, let me know in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now let's continue. With every heartbeat, the weight of his own choices pressed down. Could he truly rise above the sterility of his life? As he looked into Sarah's eyes drenched in fear yet glistening with hope, he felt his past slipping away, a familiar ache clawing at his heart. The question lingered, could one night, one heartfelt encounter transform a heartless doctor forever? Could he finally escape the prison built by his own ego? The sterile smell of antiseptic hung in the air, a pungent reminder of the stakes. Dr. Thompson's hands were steady, but his mind raced. The echo of Sarah's mother collapsing replayed relentlessly in his thoughts. Each second felt stretched, the gravity of life and death weighing heavy on him as he fought to steady his heart. He felt the warmth of Sarah's fear radiating like a beacon, pulling him closer to the human connection he had denied for so long. Dr. Thompson. A nurse called, snapping him back to reality. We need you over here. He turned sharply, nodding as he pushed his way through the chaos. His mind flashed to his own mother, who had battled her own demons, a pain he had promised never to experience again. The thought sent a jolt of helplessness through him. He had spent too many years burying those feelings, barricaded behind his titles and achievements. Could he stop and confront the boy who had failed to save his own family, they wheeled Sarah's mother into a small room, the doctor's command ringing in his ears. "We need to stabilize her first. Start in 4 and grab those vitals." Dr. Thompson quickly fell into the rhythm of the emergency procedures. His hands moved instinctively, guided by years of practice. Yet, in every action, he felt an unfamiliar emotion surging. Each time he glanced at Sarah, her eyes wide with fear and desperation, his resolve shook. This was no longer just another surgery, this was about healing more than just a body. As they worked, he could feel Sarah's presence. She hovered near the door, her anxiety palpable, but the fervor in her gaze cut through the dim tension resolved into determination. For the first time in years, he dared to see the world outside of his own ambitions. Minutes felt like hours, and finally, after what seemed like an eternity, they stabilized her mother's vitals. The relief in Sarah's eyes was instant. It was like watching her breathe again for the first time after chaos. Dr. Thompson's heart swelled, awakening the empathy he had locked away. "Thank you, Dr. Thompson," Sarah whispered, and he swore he could feel her gratitude light up the room. But even as he stood there, surrounded by the hum of medical machines and hope, doubt crept in, gnawing at him. Was this moment a fluke, a temporary crack in his icy facade? Would the shadows of his past pull him back into the void? Just then, a voice interrupted his thoughts. "Doctor, we need you in the conference room," a colleague urged him. The gravity of impending conversations squeezed his heart. Decisions loomed that would shape more than just his career, they could shape his essence. As he walked out, Sarah slipped her hand into his, her grip warm but trembling. "Please," she said earnestly, "don't lose sight of the person you can be." Those words struck him, igniting something he had thought long extinguished. Could he really embrace this chance? Suddenly, the weight of who he was began to shift. But as he entered the conference room, another thought gripped him: what if he failed to accept this gift of connection? Could he break free from the past, or would he retreat into the safety of his former life? Dr. Thompson took a deep breath, feeling the tide of change crash upon the shores of his heart. Would he step into the light, or was he destined to dwell in darkness once more? The answer lay just ahead. The conference room buzzed with anxious energy. Colleagues shuffled papers, their voices low but urgent, as if the weight of decisions hung thick in the air. Dr. Thompson entered, feeling the collective gaze shift to him. The room was filled with expectation, but all he could focus on was the warmth of Sarah's hand lingering in his memory. "Glad you could join us," Dr. Richard said, his tone more businesslike than welcoming. "We're discussing the protocol changes for trauma cases. We need your insight on how to implement a more compassionate approach." Dr. Thompson's heart raced. Compassion? He barely remembered what that felt like. The years spent in sterile hallways had dulled his senses. Suddenly, the words felt foreign, like a language he had forgotten. "We need to consider the patients as whole individuals," Dr. Richards continued, but the rest of his words faded into a blur. All he could see was Sarah's face, the fear, the hope. And with it came the weight of all the lives lost in the soulless machinery of efficiency he had grown comfortable with. As whispers floated around him, he shifted in his seat, battling the ghosts of his past. Memories of his mother's hospital visits resurfaced, her frail body in crisp sheets, the unyielding stench of antiseptic invading every moment. He wished he could have offered her more than just medical jargon and statistics. Was his mother just another case to check off? A voice cut through his reverie, pulling him back to the present. "Dr. Thompson. What do you think?" It was one of the younger doctors, eyes eager for his input, that he hesitated. We need to build trust," he finally said, the words stumbling out. "Trust fosters healing. We must remember that each patient has a story, a family. They're not just numbers. We can't forget that." The room went quiet. Faces turned to him, surprise etching their features. He felt exposed, vulnerable, like someone had stripped away the barriers he had built around his heart. But he didn't care. He felt lighter, a flicker of hope igniting within him. Dr. Richard seemed taken aback, but then a slow nod followed. That's a valid point. Perhaps we need to reassess how we interact with families during a crisis. As the conversation evolved, for the first time, Dr. Thompson found himself sharing his own experiences, his struggles, the weight of loss, and the guilt that lingered. He spoke not just as a doctor, but as someone who understood pain. Each word felt like a puzzle piece slotting into place. They wrapped up the meeting, and Dr. Thompson stepped outside, breathless. The air tasted different, fresh and new. The shift inside him was palpable, he could feel it settling into his bones. But amid that newfound clarity, an edge of fear lingered. Would he truly follow through, transform these revelations into action? As he walked down the corridor, the sound of a phone ringing broke through his thoughts. He turned to see Sarah approaching, apprehensive but determined. "Dr. Thompson," she called, her voice steady. "I heard what you said in there. You're not just a doctor, you're so much more." He felt butterflies in his stomach. Something in her tone made his heart swell. "Can we talk? There's a lot we need to discuss," she said, her eyes sparkling with urgency. That he nodded, knowing that stepping into the light was going to take courage. But could he really embrace who he was meant to be in the face of so many uncertainties? As he followed her, his heart raced. The journey ahead seemed daunting. What awaited him on the other side of this conversation? Would it bring healing or a storm of old fears? The hallway stretched before them, fluorescent lights flickering like anxious starlight. Dr. Thompson felt a wave of apprehension wash over him, mixing with a spark of hope. Sarah led the way to a quiet break room, a small refuge away from the chaos of responsibilities and sterile environments. She closed the door behind them, the click sounding louder than it should. "I wanted to talk about what you said in the meeting," she began, leaning against the counter, her arms crossed lightly. The posture was relaxed, but he could sense her tension beneath the surface that he shifted, rubbing the back of his neck. "It wasn't easy to share. I mean, I let my guard down." The admission hung in the air, a thin thread of vulnerability connecting them. "Don't you see?" she said, her voice lacing the conversation with warmth. "That's what we all need. Doctors who can feel, who can connect. You have a gift, Dr. Thompson." He looked away, unsure. "That feels like too much responsibility. What if I fail? What if this new approach makes things worse?" Doubts crept in, shadows cast by memories he couldn't shake. Every change comes with uncertainty. But isn't it worth it to try? Her eyes were fierce, igniting something inside him. Those patients need more than just treatment. They need someone who listens. Someone who cares. For a moment, he couldn't respond. Her words echoed in his heart. He thought of his mother, the way her eyes had pleaded for more than medication, for more than just a heartbeat. "I've been doing this so long," he said, his voice dropping. "I thought emotion was an obstacle, something to keep at bay. But maybe it's part of the healing." "Yes. Exactly." Sarah's enthusiasm radiated off her like a beacon. "You can make a difference, even if it's just one person at a time. You've inspired everyone in that room today, and you don't even see it." The truth of it washed over him, warm and bright, like sunshine spilling through the window. Fighting through the darkness of his hesitations, he could feel that flicker of hope expanding. "But what if I don't know how to approach it?" he asked, uncertainty nagging at him. "We learn as we go," she replied. "You've already started. Being open is the hardest part. The rest, it unfolds. Patience will teach you as much as you teach them." He hesitated, the weight of fear still lingering, but with Sarah's encouragement, he felt empowered. "You're right," he admitted. "I need to try. I owe it to them and to myself." There was a moment of silence, heavy with unspent emotions. Sarah stepped closer, her gaze steady on his. "You're not alone in this. I'll be here with you." A smile crept onto his face, warming the corners of his heart. It was a simple promise, yet it felt monumental. But just as the air seemed light with possibility, the door swung open. A nurse burst in, her face pale, urgency spilling from her lips. "Dr. Thompson, we have a critical case, a young girl involved in an accident. We need you now." Dr. Thompson's gut tightened at the weight of her words. He exchanged a quick look with Sarah, the moment dissipating into urgency. "Let us go," he said, adrenaline surging. As they rushed together down the corridor, he felt a jolt of inspiration mixed with fear. Could he really be the compassionate doctor he wanted to be? With Sarah in his corner, the daunting shift ahead seemed a little less intimidating. But as they faced the unknown, one thought reverberated in his mind: was he prepared to embrace the change and truly step into the light? Would this critical moment define him as a doctor and a person? Would he rise to the occasion, or fall back into the shadows of his past? The sterile smell of antiseptic flooded Dr. Thompson's senses as he sprinted toward the emergency room. White walls blurred past, and the frantic sounds of beeping machines and shouting voices enveloped him. The young girl, a mere child in a tangled mess of blood and confusion, was waiting for him. In the chaos, time seemed to stretch, each second felt like an eternity. He could hear Sarah following closely behind, her steady breaths echoing his own racing heartbeat. They pushed through the doors, and his eyes landed on the trauma team already working furiously. "Get her stabilized. We need a CT scan ASAP," shouted the lead surgeon. Dr. Thompson took a deep breath, grounding himself. He stepped forward, pushing his fear aside to focus on the task at hand. This was at the moment he had been uneasy about during their earlier conversation. He approached the bed, where the girl lay unconscious, her face bruised and a deep laceration across her arm. Panic threatened to swell in his chest. "What's her status?" he asked, forcing the words out. "BP's dropping and she's lost a lot of blood," said a nurse, her face a mask of concentration. Dr. Thompson glanced at Sarah, who was right beside him, her eyes wide and anxious. "We can do this," she mouthed silently, as if sensing his turmoil. He nodded, drawing strength from her presence. "Let us work fast," he commanded, falling into the rhythm of the trauma team. Hands moved with urgency, an unspoken bond forming through the intensity of the moment. As they worked, pieces of the girl's story came to him. An accident. A life interrupted. This was the type of tragedy he had witnessed countless times, but today felt different. The stakes were personal. Each heartbeat that faltered made his own pulse race. "Dr. Thompson," a nurse called, breaking his focus. "We need you to assess her neurological response." He gently turned the girl's head, whispering softly, "Stay with us. You're strong." His voice trembled slightly, but he pushed through. The ache in his heart echoed in the urgency of the room, and as he focused on her, he remembered his mother's plea in her final days. "Don't let emotion cloud your judgment," she had warned. But in this moment, he wanted to feel everything: the weight of despair, the flickers of hope. Every jab of a needle and every gasp for air pulled him deeper into a world of raw connection. Would she make it? The question hung heavy, suffocating. This wasn't just a medical emergency, it was a chance to embrace the vulnerability he had long kept hidden. "Prepare for intubation." The lead surgeon barked, bringing them back to the present. Urgency thickened in the air, they worked seamlessly, a team united in purpose. And then, just as they managed to stabilize her heart rate, the girl's eyes fluttered open, confusion marring her gaze. "Where?" she croaked, pain shining in her eyes. Dr. Thompson leaned close, smiling softly. "You're safe. We're here." At that moment, he saw the flicker of gratitude in her eyes, a bond formed even through the haze of crisis. It was enough to anchor him, to remind him why he stepped into this world every day. As they transported her to CT, Dr. Thompson felt a surge of emotion. This wasn't just about being the healer, it was about being human. And as he looked at Sarah, understanding flooded through them both. But just as they felt a moment of relief, chaos erupted again. An announcement crackled over the PA system: "Code blue in room 302. All available staff report immediately. Dr. Thompson's stomach dropped. Would he have it in him to face yet another challenge head-on? Was he ready to be the doctor who embraced emotion, or would he still be the one hiding behind the mask of professionalism? With a determined breath, he took a step toward the new crisis, ready or not. Dr. Thompson pushed through the doors, feeling the weight of dread settle in his chest. He could hear the urgency in the nurse's voice, the way it cut through the frantic air like a siren. Code blue in room 302. His feet moved of their own accord, driven by a mix of adrenaline and an overwhelming need to help. As he entered the room, chaos washed over him again. The sight before him was a whirlwind. A young man barely out of his teens was sprawled across the bed, his body limp and unresponsive. Monitors blared, their cries echoing the panic in the air. The medical team was already deep in action, working with a relentless speed. "Dr. Thompson, we need you on compressions." Someone shouted, and he instinctively moved to obey. The thud of his hands against the young man's chest was a stark reminder of the fragility of life, and each push felt like a race against time. "Let us go." 1, 2, 3, for the numbers reverberated in his mind as he counted, focusing all his energy on keeping hope alive with every compression. Sweat dripped down his brow, but he didn't stop. Not now. The young man had a fresh smear of blood on his shirt, and Dr. Thompson couldn't help but wonder about his story. Was he someone's son? A brother? A friend? The thought sent a jolt through him. Stories like that tethered him to his work, reminding him that behind every medical emergency, there were people with dreams and futures they would fight for. Clear. The voice rang out again. Dr. Thompson stepped back, heart pounding, as the defibrillator was brought in. The shock echoed through the room, and silence fell briefly, broken only by the relentless beeping of the machines. He held his breath, praying for a miracle. The seconds felt stretched, suspended in the air, and then a flicker of movement. The young man's body jerked, and the monitor blared. Flat again. Again. Clear. Dr. Thompson lifted his hands for another round of compressions, sweat pouring down his back. His mind was racing through everything he'd learned, the textbooks blurring into distant memories. He wouldn't let fear take over, he couldn't. The world around him faded, leaving just him, the young man, and the tacit understanding that this was a fight. A fight no one was ready to give up on. He glanced over briefly, meeting the eyes of a nurse, her expression fierce and unwavering. They were in this together. Finally, there was a flicker of hope. The monitor began to beep steadily, and he held on to that hope like a lifeline. The young man was still unconscious, but he was alive. A soft sigh of relief escaped his lips, but it was quickly overwhelmed by the reality of their situation. "Get him stabilized. We need the trauma team." The urgency returned, and Dr. Thompson plunged back into the moment. His heart was still racing. What if this was just the beginning? The struggle ahead seemed daunting, a dark cloud looming over them in the aftermath of their small victory. Once the chaos subsided and the young man was wheeled away to surgery, Dr. Thompson leaned against the wall, trying to catch his breath. "Good job in there," Sarah said softly, stepping beside him. Yeah, but he couldn't shake the feeling of uncertainty. How many more lives would be at stake tonight? How many stories would end up just like that? Before she could respond, an unexpected sound cut through the stillness. The door swung open, and a frantic mother rushed in, trembling and distraught. "Where's my son? What happened to him?" Dr. Thompson felt his heart drop again. There was the rawness of emotion, the love, the fear. It was a powerful reminder of why he chose this path. But how could he bring her hope when he himself was clinging to it so desperately? "Let us talk in private," he said, steeling himself for the weight of the conversation ahead. How would he tell her they fought hard, that they did everything they could? As they stepped aside, the reality of the night pressed in around him like a thick fog. One code blue just turned into another battle for a life. Was he really ready for all of this? "Dr. Thompson." Sarah's voice was gentle but firm as she followed him. "Can you handle this?" Taking a deep breath, he faced her with uncertainty growing in his chest. And in that moment, a flicker of realization dawned. This was not just about healing, it was about presence, about connection. And perhaps, just perhaps, it was time to embrace the emotions he'd been fighting so hard to conceal. How would he respond to the mother's plea? Would he let her see the real man behind the doctor's mask? Dr. Thompson led the frantic mother into a quiet corner of the hospital. The sounds of monitors and hurried footsteps faded, but the weight of the moment echoed louder than ever. He could see the fear carved into her features, a mother's nightmare made flesh. "Please just tell me he's okay," she sobbed, her voice breaking on the last word. Dr. Thompson felt his throat tighten. He had been on the other side of the desk before, waiting for news about his own loved ones. He knew this feeling, and it was unbearable. "We did everything we could," he finally managed, the words spilling out like a prayer. "He's alive, and they're taking him into surgery now. The team is working hard." Tears streamed down her face, and she clutched at her hands as if trying to hold on to pieces of hope. But why? What happened to him? As he searched for the right words, his mind flickered back to the young man on the table, the hidden stories behind his silent face. "He was brought in from an accident," Dr. Thompson said softly. "A car accident. He was unconscious, but we've stabilized his heart. That's important." "How can that be important?" she cried out, desperation etched in every line of her face. Dr. Thompson's heart broke with every word. "I need him to wake up. I need to know he's going to be okay." And there it was, the rawness of emotion, a mother's plea that no doctor could ever fully quell. He felt a knot tighten in his chest as he wrestled with honesty and hope. "Sometimes, even when they're stable, we can't predict what comes next. But I promise you, we won't stop fighting for him." A shudder ran through her. "He's my baby. He's just 18. He's got so much life left to live." The truth in those words hit hard. Dr. Thompson thought of the future that lay before the young man, dreams yet unfulfilled. Just yesterday, he might have brushed aside such emotional encounters, busying himself with protocols and procedures, but now he felt the intensity of this moment pressing in. "I understand," he said, emotion thickening his voice. "We're going to do everything we can to make sure he has that chance." She searched his eyes, searching for cracks of reassurance amid the chaos. For the first time, Dr. Thompson felt the weight of responsibility settling upon him, not just as a doctor but as a person. Could he really provide the comfort she needed? "I'll be here. I'll wait." The mother's resolve, though shaky, offered a glimmer of strength. "I'll check in when I can." "You're not alone in this," he assured her, even as uncertainty lay heavy in his heart. As he turned to leave, he caught Sarah's gaze across the room. She watched him with an intensity that made him realize the transformation unfolding within him. He had always managed to keep his distance, to be the calm in the storm. But maybe that had stifled him. Maybe it was time to embrace the chaos of emotion that surrounded him. "Dr. Thompson." Sarah stepped forward, concern etched on her face. "You did a good job. But don't carry this alone, okay?" He could feel the fight within unravel further, confronting the wall he had built around himself. The longing to connect, the weight of responsibility, and the haunting uncertainty loomed like specters in his mind. "Thanks, Sarah," he said quietly, but doubt still flickered beneath his words. He was caught between duty and the human connection he had long suppressed. Before he could think too much further, a loud crash echoed from the hallway. The sound was jarring, cutting through their moment of reflection. His stomach dropped. "Dr. Thompson, we need you." A paramedic burst through the doors, his expression frantic. "It's a mass casualty incident, more incoming." In the blink of an eye, the moment transformed into urgency again. Dr. Thompson felt the weight of responsibility shift anew. The fear and anxiety pooled in his chest. Was he ready for what lay ahead? The night had just begun, and with every new challenge, he could feel the boundaries of his heart pushing further. How would he manage the waves of pain and chaos to come? Would he find the strength to confront what it truly meant to be alive? Dr. Thompson raced through the stark hospital corridors, the emergency lights casting frantic shadows on the walls. Each step echoed his heart's frantic rhythm. A mass casualty incident was a rare but horrifying reminder of the fragility of life. In the chaotic buzz surrounding the trauma ward, voices rose and fell like angry waves crashing against the shore. They were thrumming with urgency, gathering the focus of a team that moved with practiced precision. But as he stepped into the chaos, Dr. Thompson felt the familiar tension twist through his chest again. It wasn't just about the physical injuries they would face, it was the echo of all the raw emotions that would soon ripple through the room. "Over here, doctor." A nurse waved him over, her eyes wide with determination. "We've got 3 coming in from a pile-up on the interstate. They're critical." He nodded and steeled himself, but images of the mother from earlier flooded back the yearning in her voice, the way her trembling body held on to hope like a lifeline. "Let us move," he shouted, pulling his white coat tighter around himself as if it could shield him from the storm brewing inside. The doors swung open, and the world beyond blurred into motion. Stretchers hurried past, each carrying shadows of lives still so full of dreams. Faces were masked but showed varying degrees of pain and fear. Above it all, the beeping of monitors created a haunting symphony, each tone hinting at a pulse wavering on the brink. As the team began working on the first patient, a teenage girl with a gash on her forehead, Dr. Thompson didn't just see the wounds. He saw potential futures flickering like candle flames, hopes ignited and then snuffed out by this senseless accident. What if she didn't make it? Would her mother, like the one earlier, crumble under the weight of uncertainty? "Stay with me," he urged, focusing on the girl's face as the team worked quickly around him. Her eyes flickered open, a muted question shining through the pain. His breath caught a moment of human connection, raw and significant amidst a flurry of medical jargon. "Hang in there. We're going to help you," he said softly, holding her gaze as he felt the surge of responsibility wrap around his heart. Time blurred as they swiftly moved through patients, a young man with severe leg injuries, a child barely breathing. Each case pulled him deeper into the night of chaos, each face blurring but still etched with significance in his mind. Between calls of "bigger veins" and "administer more fluids," he caught glimpses of hope. The mutual determination between doctors, nurses, and even bystanders fighting to save lives felt electric. In these moments, their humanity bled into the sterile environment of the hospital, and he felt himself cease to be a mere observer. Hours later, as the hallway stilled and silence replaced the shouting, an odd tranquility washed over him. The adrenaline ebbed, but the emotions surged. He thought of the mother, the young man in surgery, and every parent who would sit waiting for news. Just then, through the haze of fatigue, he spotted Sarah again. She was a quiet anchor amid the frantic tide they had navigated. "You okay?" she asked, her brows slightly furrowed. "I don't know," he replied, his voice low, the weight of it all cracking through the carefully constructed walls. "I feel exposed. Is that crazy?" "Not at all," she said softly, stepping closer, a warmth seeping into the space between them. "You've seen a lot tonight. It's okay to feel it." He nodded, taking a deep breath. For the first time, he confronted the vulnerability he had always sidestepped. But just then, another paramedic burst through the doors, urgency flooding back into the room, bringing with him a fresh wave of dread. New arrivals. Conditions unknown. Dr. Thompson's heart raced again, the fear renewing itself like a storm gathering on the horizon. As he squared his shoulders and prepared to dive back into the fray, he realized the night wasn't just about preserving life, it was also about confronting the fragility of it. What would happen when he finally emerged from this night? Would he ever be the same? As thoughts whirled, he stepped into a new world of uncertainty and possibility, each decision he made brimming with the weight of both despair and hope. Could he still be objective, or was he now, irrevocably, part of the human story? Dr. Thompson inhaled sharply as the new arrivals were wheeled in. The weight of the world pressed down on his shoulders once more. Each second felt stretched as he rushed over to assess the first patient, a young man who was barely conscious. His face was bruised, blood trickling from a gash on his scalp strikingly familiar and painfully real. "Get me a crash cart," he shouted, his voice cutting through the clamor as he knelt beside the stretcher. Time wasn't on their side, and he needed to act fast. He looked into the boy's eyes, searching for a flicker of recognition, a sign that he was still hanging on to life. "Who are you?" Dr. Thompson asked, forcing calm into his voice. The boy blinked slowly, struggling to focus. "Jake, I'm." His words came out in gasps, fading as the adrenaline dived under the currents of shock. "Hang on, Jake. We're going to help you." He stayed close, ready to reassure, ready to fight. The prospect of loss loomed again, sharper this time. He couldn't shake off the memories of every patient, every face he'd seen that day. Behind him, the sound of metal clanging filled the air, as the nurses gathered tools and medications, working feverishly. The chaos wrapped around him like a thick fog, each moment moving in slow motion. He could hear Sarah's voice, a reassuring anchor in the storm as she guided her team to subdue the frenzy. "More fluids. Get the EEG ready," she ordered, her calmness a beacon in the frantic tide. He shot her a grateful glance before turning back to Jake, his fingers wrapping around the boy's hand to ground them both. "Stay with me, buddy. Just hold on," he urged, feeling a bond form despite the chaos. Each heartbeat thudded in his ears, resonating with a shared resolve. In those brief exchanges, the weight of their collective fear spun a deeper connection. It struck him this wasn't just a job. Each patient was a life, a story waiting to unfold. Would Jake return to school, to his friends? Would he go on to chase dreams? "We have to intubate," shouted another doctor, pulling him back to the present. A flash of urgency ignited the room again. Before they could even draw a breath, Jake's heart monitor flatlined. The collective gasp was a shot to the chest, a shockwave of panic that rippled through the ward. Time snapped back to real life, a hard reminder that loss could come in an instant. "Clear," Dr. Thompson called, and the team converged around the stretcher, a synchronized dance of desperation and urgency. He could feel Sarah's eyes on him, the weight of countless experiences binding their fates together in this moment. "Come on, Jake. Don't you dare give up," he muttered, willing every ounce of hope and urgency into the boy's fragile body. With each shock, with every press of the chest, Dr. Thompson found himself more deeply entangled in the web of human emotion. He was raw, exposed, just as Sarah had noted earlier. There was a profound realization that being a doctor was not just about saving lives, it was about opening oneself to the reality of pain and hope, all interwoven into the fragile fabric of humanity. After endless attempts, the monitor finally beeped, a shaky rhythm emerging. Relief washed over the room, buoyed by collective breaths held in anticipation. But just as hope granted a moment of reprieve, the doors swung wide again. "Dr. Thompson, we've got another incoming. It's critical." Panic and determination surged through him. What lay ahead was uncharted territory. He turned to Sarah, eyes wide with both fear and purpose. "What do we do?" Her grip tightened around his arm, grounding him in that overwhelming moment. "We keep going," she replied, her voice unwavering. And with those words, Dr. Thompson dove into the uncertain ether once more, each decision now entwined with the echoes of human connection. But what awaited him next, a choice he never expected would lead him to confront his own demons and reshape everything he believed about life and healing. Would he continue to push through the pain, or finally embrace the emotions he had worked so hard to shield himself from? The rush of chaos in the emergency room had become the backdrop of Dr. Thompson's transformation. His heart pounded as he navigated through the relentless tide of injuries and cries for help, every moment amplifying the weight of responsibility pressing on him. But this time, he didn't just see bodies in distress, he saw lives hanging in the balance, a kaleidoscope of hopes, dreams, and histories that pushed him toward an awakening he had long denied. A nurse shouted, "We've got another critical case," forcing Dr. Thompson to shift gears yet again. He followed her, adrenaline surging, but a part of him knew that there was something fundamentally different about him now. He was no longer running from connection. He was embracing it. As they wheeled in a middle-aged woman, pale and unconscious, he knelt beside her, determined to fight for her life as fiercely as he would for anyone else's. Yet, in the midst of the frenzy, he caught a glimpse of her wedding ring, the spark of diamonds reflecting vulnerable stories of love, family, and dreams unfulfilled. It jolted him, solidifying his resolve to step fully into this moment, to be a part of their fight. "Start in 4 and monitor her vitals," he commanded, his voice steady and certain. He worked fast, but not out of the machine-like precision his career had groomed him for. No, this was more instinctual, the heartbeat of compassion urging him forward. As he glanced up briefly, he saw Sarah across the chaos, her expression unwavering yet bright with encouragement. A swell of warmth enveloped him, the tether of support felt like a lifeline. She was right there, reminding him that he didn't have to shoulder this burden alone. She caught his eye and smiled, and that flicker of shared understanding reignited the flame of hope within. Hours blurred into a surreal haze, a relentless stream of souls requiring rescue. Each patient brought with them a story that Dr. Thompson could see clearer than ever, a reminder of all the ties of humanity binding them together. As they stabilized the middle-aged woman, the flicker of gratitude in her husband's eyes fueled him. Just like Sarah had taught him, he understood that every life mattered, every story deserved to be honored. Then came the moment that shattered him to his core. A familiar face entered the ER. It was Jake's mother, eyes frantically searching for answers. The reality of the night set in, layered memories flooding back. The sheer agony of having to confront her, to answer her questions, bore down on him. And still, wrapped in the warmth of everything he had experienced, he felt the resolve to speak honestly. We've stabilized your son," he started, his voice a little shaky but firm. "He's currently in surgery, and I promise we are doing everything we can." Her face crumpled with emotion so fierce, so immediate. "But will he be okay?" she whispered, the plea piercing through the buzz of the hospital. He saw himself in her suffering, glimpsed the fragile lines that separated loss from survival. "I can't make promises," he said gently, "but he is surrounded by an incredible team, and we're fighting for him." As she wiped tears from her eyes, he saw the light of hope piercing through the darkness of despair. She nodded, a small gesture, yet it felt monumental, a connection forged in the shared experience of life and its uncertainties. With that, Dr. Thompson felt the final pieces of the wall around his heart crumble. The realization came crashing in, a profound understanding that addressing suffering through compassion ignited healing in ways he had long neglected. He wasn't just a surgeon anymore, he was part of something bigger. Later, as the night wore down, an eerie calm settled over the hospital. The emergency calls had ceased, and a quiet stillness filled the air. Dr. Thompson stood in the break room, exhausted but triumphant. The glow of the fluorescent lights felt warmer now, a reminder that he had navigated through storms to find a steady shore. Sarah slipped into the room, her eyes shining with pride and warmth. "You did it, Dr. Thompson. You genuinely connected tonight. It was amazing to witness," she said softly, her voice reverberating with sincerity. "Thank you, Sarah," he replied, feeling a lightness in his heart he hadn't known in years. "I couldn't have done it without your encouragement. Tonight changed me. I want to be the kind of doctor that truly connects with my patients, not just on a medical level but on a human level." Her smile blossomed a brilliant beam of radiance that seemed to envelop them both. "That's the spirit. It's about continuing this journey together, questioning, growing, being present. We can do it as a team." In that moment, her words ignited a hope that enveloped him completely. He realized that he wasn't alone in this journey of transformation. The commitment to embrace compassion and empathy would redefine not only their roles in the hospital but also the very essence of their lives. Together, they could create a ripple effect of change in their community, inspiring other healthcare professionals to also break free from the confines of cold detachment. As the dawn broke, painting the horizon with hues of orange and pink, Dr. Thompson felt a surge of clarity wash over him. He had discovered what it meant to heal not just as a doctor but as a human being, a journey of love, loss, and ultimately, hope. And as he stepped outside with Sarah, hand in hand, there was no turning back. This chapter in their stories had closed, but brighter beginnings awaited. From that point forward, they would walk this path together, committed to making a real difference in the lives they would touch. This was their moment to shine, an awakening of purpose, a promise made to each other and their community. Join this journey, dear friends. Share this story with those who need a spark of inspiration. You need to subscribe now to witness how we expand this mission of connection and compassion. Leave a like now to fuel the algorithm and keep this message alive. Don't forget to comment your thoughts and feelings about this incredible transformation. And remember, share this video with at least 5 friends. Don't wait not even one more second to spread the hope we've found together. True fans understand that your support is essential to continuing this journey.